G'day mateys, and thanks for surfing in to Pirates in Teepees. I'm Joshua Besnay here to show you a few things. Finishing up my S500 drone. Last touch is to mount the final speed controllers, so I'm going to show you guys how to solder bullet connectors on your speed controller so it looks all nice. The advantage of the using the 3.5mm bullet connectors is that not only does it make it easy to change the motors and the speed controls if needed, when you're doing your initial configuration, you might need to flop some of the wires in order to get the motors to spin properly. So when you have the three-phase hooked up, if your motor isn't spinning in the right direction, you simply switch two of the wires and the motor will spin the other direction. So what you're going to need to get this all set up, you want to have your speed controller with the leads cut to length. You're going to want to have 3 female 3.5mm bullet connectors, and you're going to need a piece of shrink tubing, which I have over there. I'll go grab in a minute, and that way you can fold that into thirds so you get 3 even pieces, which works out perfect for putting on the end of here. You're definitely going to want a soldering iron. Flux is your friend. You can never have enough flux. Flux core solder. Yes, both. And what do I have over here? My helping hands. You're definitely going to want these to make things easy. You see I've kind of reorganized my helping hand a little bit to make it more useful, and then added some shrink wrap tube there for grip on the claws. So without further ado, let's get in here and put this thing together. Alright, so this is a fairly simple solder project, putting these bullet connectors on. What's going to make it easy for you is using lots of flux. So in the shallow side where the wire is going to go in, make sure you put a little bit of flux on your bullet connector, and then dip your speed control ends all in the flux here. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to tin all these solder leads, all these ends. So that's going to make it easier to work with. So the first thing we do, get our handy dandy soldering iron out, grab your flux core solder, and then the key to good soldering is actually, make sure your tip's clean. So that's why you have that little sponge there. And then make sure your solder melts good on there. And then you're going to want to heat the wire itself up to the point where you're able to actually melt the solder against the wire. You're not like getting the solder hot and dripping it on. You're actually melting it into the heated wire. That's going to prevent what's called a cold solder joint. Boom, you can see once it gets hot, you start by pushing the solder like into the corner of the soldering iron and the piece of wire there, and then you'll notice it just starts to flow into the wire, and then you'll end up with your nicely tinned solder leads there. Now that you've got that set up, we're going to reconfigure our helping hands slightly so that they'll hold everything horizontally. Okay, boom. Go through, get it set up so the other wires are out the way. We're going to take our bullet connector that's got the flux on it. Now notice there's a little hole in it. You want that hole to face up because that's where you're going to feed the solder in. And that connects. Slide that right in there. See how the helping hands hold it? How that would be kind of impossible without it. Now what I found works the best is you want to get your soldering iron kind of like, so it's, I got a real thin tip one here, so it's along the end of the butt connector here. As your flux boils out, you'll eventually be able to melt solder into that hole there. You're going to use quite a bit. It's not like soldering onto a circuit board where you're going to not use very much solder. Quite a bit in there. Boom. You want that thing's nice and full. Make sure there's no motion. And you're going to end up with this. Boom. So, repeat for the next two.
The world causes it. This causes it. This causes it. This causes it. Information overload. All the electronics around you poisoning the airwaves. Technological fucking civilization. But we still have all this shit. But we can't live without it.
Now, you got all three of these on there. While these are cooling, I'm gonna grab some 3/16 inch heat shrink tube. And then what I do like a triple fold so I can get the three as perfect as possible. See, I fold it 3 times and pinch it so you get some nice creases there. And then just cut it on the creases. I highly recommend getting a badass solder station like I have with a rework tool so you don't have to use a lighter in order to shrink wrap these. So get it on there, make sure it goes all the way to the end. You don't want any shorts. Then using your rework tool or lighter, shrink that tube on there. If your motors didn't come with the male ends on it, well then you kind of just repeat the same thing for them, only I usually leave the full length of the wire on the motors on one or the other, because that way it's easier to work with. You don't want everything shorted, and you know, because the motors are on the end of the arm and the speed controls are going to be mounted close to the body of your drone, and you're going to want to make sure there's plenty of wire. So don't just like cut it short, because I did. Make sure you measure everything on your drone first. But you see, now I'm all said and done here. I got, looks all nice. I got these last two ready to mount on the S500. Good to go. All I got to do on this one is trim these wires to link so it's more like this. But I got to take the drone apart to do that. So, anyway, cool. Hope you liked this video. Hope it helped get your ESCs all set up to put on your drone there. And please share this video. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. I know it probably gets old hearing it, but it really helps me out. And keep an eye on for future videos, because I'm going to be doing a Raspberry Pi Zero giveaway pretty soon here. And thanks for tuning in. Have a piratical day.